He hasn't quite accepted it that in this case, militancy is going to be the only answer to stop what the British Empire is doing.
Oh, yeah. If you've grown up with the understanding that violence is never the answer, that's not true. Violence is often part of
strategic,
the
though. It's got to be checked.
Not indiscriminate violence. Right. Just like sometimes you have to respond with violence.
Well, a lot of
if you want to perform an effective resistance and rebellion to authoritarian structures.
Yeah. See episode 2, V for Vendetta, where we talk about this.
Exactly.
The thing about violence, this is what Griffin says, the thing about violence, C, is that the empire... Sorry, let me read this a little better. The thing about violence, C, is that the empire has a lot more to lose than we do. Violence disrupts the extractive economy. You wreak havoc on one supply line, and there's a dip in prices across the Atlantic. Their entire system of trade is high-strung and vulnerable to shocks because they've made it thus. Because the rapacious greed of capitalism is punishing. It's why slave revolts succeed. They can't fire on their own source of labor. It's like killing their own golden goose. And then it skips ahead a little bit. And he says, violence shocks the system, and the system cannot survive the shock. You have no idea what you're capable of, truly. You can't imagine how the world might shift unless you pull that trigger. Griffin pointed at the middle of the birch tree. Pull the trigger, kid.
This is why when any black person is killed by police officers, the news media will explain it away, talk about how it was an isolated incident,
or
that there's like some bad apples. They will also always do, they were no angel. Mm-hmm. But if Charlie Kirk is shot by a gun whilst talking about how important it is for average Americans to own firearms, they'll lionize him, you know?
And after just finishing talking about hating trans people.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the powers that be love violence when they are controlling it, mm-hmm. and despise violence when it is directed at them.
And then
they are hypocrites, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. And because violence is everywhere. You just mm-hmm. don't have to see it.
Right.
Right? There's an Ann Leckie quote from her book, Ancillary Justice.
Okay.
And it's like something like, forgive me because it's I won't get it verbatim. The beauty of colonialism is that one does not have to see the cost if one does not want to.
Ooh. Yeah, dude. Yeah. It's the thing that it's the thing they never point out in Jane Austen adaptations.
Right, right. And then one last quote, and this one is actually from Robin when they're talking about the bridge's impending collapse, and they're debating on whether or not they should let it happen or they should call the siege off to protect people and all this stuff. And Robin and someone says we become monsters just like them, and Robin says, but that's precisely the devil's trick. Robin insisted. This is how colonialism works. It convinces us that the fallout from resistance is entirely our fault, that the immoral choice is resistance itself, rather than the circumstances that demanded it.
Oh.
So, there's so many brilliant
That's exactly
quotes.
Right. Because the Parliament could have stopped it. The Parliament had a full week of being aware that the bridge was going to collapse. And they would rather sacrifice the bridge and everybody who was using the bridge at that moment than take responsibility for what they had done.
Because the rich don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they give a shit? Their castles don't crumble. They've got everything they need. They probably have their own personal silver worker to maintain it, to make sure that they don't have to do anything. Rather, they just build bunkers and they build fortresses and they sit in their high towers and they drink their tea and they just let everything go to shit.
Absolutely. No, they make a very good point in that moment. Robin's making a very good point, I should say, that the Parliament prefers power to people's safety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what it is. That's what it comes down to.
And that's true of anyone who has significant power.
Mm-hmm.
Look at our politicians. Rather than actually addressing stuff in Congress, they just want their power.
They just want their power. They'd rather smear trans people and divide and conquer, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what they would absolutely prefer.